We're looking here at the key features of monopoly as a market structure. Now, with any market structure, knowing the characteristics and the key features, it's just essential that you know them well. They are the foundations upon which we construct our knowledge of any of the market structures. And if you're looking in the book there, so we're in book 1, strands 1 to 3 of the course, we're looking at 3.1, which is market structures. And you're looking at the key features of monopoly, you'll see that there's a border around some of them there. You can see it on the screen. They're kind of the more important ones. They're the really distinct things that really make monopoly stand out as a market structure. And remember, monopoly is far end of our spectrum of market structures. So at one end, you've got perfect competition where there's lots of buyers and sellers. The far end, you've got monopoly where there's only one seller. The firm is the industry. That situation where there's only one supplier or one seller, tends to be very rare in the modern world. And it tends to be the case that if there is only one supplier of a good or service, it tends to be that the government is the one supplying it. And the reason why is because we don't want private companies to have a monopoly because they can exploit the consumer. It's generally not good for us as customers, as consumers, if there's only one supplier of a good or service. And if you think about all the other market structures that we looked at, like we said, particularly monopolistic competition, we're saying like one of the advantages is the amount of choice we have. Like that is an advantage. So if there's only one supplier, it's a distinct disadvantage for us as a consumer because that company can charge what they like, we've got no other choice, etc. So it's not good. So the government and regulatory authorities, they would monitor very closely any situation within a private market that might lead to a monopoly or anything close to a monopoly. So let's say like two firms were going to merge. There'd be an investigation to see, well, okay, can that merger go ahead? Or is it going to lead to bad outcomes for the customer? So like a couple of years ago, Ryanair tried to buy Aer Lingus. And I think it was blocked twice, actually. They tried to buy Aer Lingus. And the reason it was blocked is because you have a situation there where Ryanair and Aer Lingus, they compete on the same routes. So you want to fly, let's say it's Dublin to London, you can choose to fly with either of them and they've got to compete on price. But if Ryanair buy Aer Lingus, there's now only one company flying that route and you've got no other choice and they can charge what they like. They're not kept honest by the competition. So that's why it was blocked, is that on a number of routes that they currently both fly, it was said that, well, the merger would have led to a monopoly on those routes. So it tends to be quite rare. Anyway, let's focus in here on those key features. So the first thing here is that there's only one firm in the industry. So there's one firm exists within the industry. There's no distinction between the firm and the industry. The firm supplies the entire output of that industry. So like if you come back to our thing of like the HHI and concentration ratios, if you're to use the HHI to calculate market concentration of a monopolistic market structure, you get a score of 10,000 because remember how you do that, how you use the HHI is you square the market share of the firms in the market. But if one firm has 100% market share, 100 by 100 will give you 10,000. So that's the score that you would get. You can't get any higher than that. And that's why like the closer you get to 10,000, we say the more concentrated the market is. The next one is the monopolist controls price or output. So they can't control both price and output. What they can do, they can set the price and the output produced is determined by consumers, or they can set the output and the price will be determined by the market. The third point there is a unique good sold, and it's unique because there's no substitutes. That's what makes it unique, is that you have to choose, you have to buy from the monopolist and you've got no other alternative. So in that sense, it's unique. So the unique good service sold, a monopolist market structure sells a unique good or service to consumers. There are no substitutes for the consumer to purchase. Example that does exist in the real world is Irish Rail. They're the sole supplier of rail services in Ireland. You can't go anywhere else to get that service. And the reason why, like, if there is a monopoly, it tends to be government run or government provided, is because there's certain things that are, it would just be unprofitable for a private company to offer them. Like rail services, probably loads of those routes that are loss making, but they're essential. So the government steps in and provides them because no private company would. So that's why we have an essential service that's a monopoly, is because no one else will provide it. So the government stepping in, they're the only ones that are willing to do it. So they do it. The next one then, in terms of our features, is profit maximization. So we see this with all our market structures, except oligopoly. We assume that firms aim to maximize profits. What does that mean? Well, it means they're going to produce a quantity where their marginal cost equals marginal revenue. That is key information that you will always give the examiner if you're writing that in an exam. So profit maximization, That means the monopolist will produce the quantity where marginal cost equals marginal revenue, always give the condition. And the final thing then, there are barriers to entry. So similar to what we had with oligopoly, there is something to stop new firms getting into the market. And what does that mean? Well, it means the short run, the long run. Well, there won't be a distinction between them. There'll only be one period. Like with monopolistic and perfect competition, the reason the short run and the long run are different are because of freedom of entry and exit. So in the short run, you've got supernormal profits been made, but then there's nothing to stop new firms entering into the market. So they do enter the market and they eliminate those supernormal profits to the point that there's only normal profits made in the long run in perfect and monopolistic. And that's the big change for those two market structures. But with oligopoly and monopoly, there are barriers to entry. There's something in place which stops new firms from being able to enter into the market. So finally there, very quickly, some of the implications of these assumptions, and we've touched on some of this stuff already. So first thing is, yeah, short run and the long run, they're going to be the same. So there's no distinction between short run and the long run because of the barriers to entry. Next thing, monopolist faces a downward sloping demand curve, and if they want to sell more, they have to lower their price. So actually what we'll see, right, is that the equilibrium position of monopolists is the exact same as the short run equilibrium position of a firm in monopolistic competition. So like a crucial diagram for you to master because you're going to use it in two places. So it's one to make sure, practice it, and make sure that you can do it really, really well. So I'll say that again, monopolistic equilibrium are monopoly equilibrium, and short run monopolistic are the same diagram. So make sure you can nail it. But realistically, like, there might be a slight difference if you're to draw the two things side by side and you're to be very, very particular about it. It probably should be the case that the monopolistic demand curve is a little bit more elastic than the monopoly demand curve, but that's a small point. But it's a downward sloping demand curve for monopoly anyway, and that's the important thing. And the final thing is, due to the level of market power that monopolies have, as well as their ability to exploit the consumer, government monitoring is far more common with monopolies than any other market structure. But it tends to happen that government will stop a monopoly even emerging in the first place. But that's it. Key features for monopoly. Make sure to know them well. And like I said, make sure that you can really nail that diagram for monopolistic short run because we're going to see it again now for monopoly.